The Chargers are 2-0 and the defense is playing great, but with Khalil Mack likely headed for an extended absence, the Chargers cannot stand idly by. They need to add edge rusher help ASAP.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, the Chargers desperately need to add to their edge room, and unfortunately, there is not very many impact players available on the street, so they are probably going to have to make a trade to be able to improve that unit. And on the defense, a bright spot. Tony Jefferson gets called up from the practice squad and absolutely balls out, and I think he proved once again he absolutely deserves to be signed to this 53-man roster. And when it comes to the running backs, is it time to give more carries to Najee Harris?
It's a good question. A lot of overreactions on this buy or sell Tuesday to get to, but this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every moment count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights of this week's moving the game forward. Mazda, move and be moved. David, it is a buy or sell Wednesday because of Monday Night Football, but it means we're getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions as we do every week. And with a 2-0 team, I'm guessing probably also with an 0-2 team, there would be a lot of hot takes flying around. But for the Chargers specifically, there are a lot of overreactions out there, but I don't think this is one of them. This is from Frank Widman, who says, buy or sell, the Chargers need to trade or sign an edge rusher. David, the Chargers' depth was already a little bit shaky because of, their fourth-round pick, Kyle Kennard being a healthy scratch. Caleb Murphy, a former UDFA, kind of getting a lot of those edge 3 snaps, or edge 4 snaps with Khalil Mack and Tuipulotu starting and Bud Dupree being behind them. But now you're looking at it, Bud Dupree is your starter, Caleb Murphy is edge 3. When I see that, even if we don't know, exactly how long Khalil Mack is going to be out at this point, we know a move has to be done.
Yeah, it most definitely does. I mean, it was not a very impressive room beforehand. There was questions about how effective they were going to be before the season started. Obviously, there was Tuli going to be able to make the jump. Was Khalil going to be able to turn back the hands of time? I mean, were they going to be able to get enough production from that room? And now, with Khalil Mack having some uncertainty with how long he's going to be out, the Chargers definitely have to go out there and make a move. And when I mean make a move, when I look at who's available, there really isn't anybody of any consequence available that's a free agent as of this moment in time. That's not a big surprise, right? The season's already started. Anybody who was going to be an impact guy got signed. So what does that mean? That means Joe Ortiz has to get on the phone and he has to go out there and make some trades. And I think when we're looking at guys that are available, obviously the top of that list, especially with how their team has started, is Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals. I know they just signed a 1-year deal, but with Joe Burrow being out for probably the entire season, that might change the outlook of how they see their season, and they may have to make some moves to be able to trade some guys off to be able to focus on next year. So that's a big target. Obviously, if you don't go that far up, I think the Giants of outside linebacker Kayvon Thibodeau is also a good option, has 1.5 sacks already through 2 games and 8 pressures. And hey, it's a relationships business, so what about calling the Ravens and inquiring about David Ojabo, who obviously is somebody who Joe Ortiz is very familiar with?
Yeah, there's definitely big names. Trey Hendrickson, I still think is quite a long shot for sure, and still doesn't really make sense in the long-term future for the Chargers right now. Just paying him that at his age. But because the thing is a trade for someone like that's still going to come with all the things an offseason trade would, which is you agreeing to make him, close to the highest paid defensive player in the NFL. And the salary cap would also have some mechanisms they would have to figure out as far as sending enough cap to take on Trey Hendrickson's big cap hit this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. And I don't think it'll be a trade for someone of that magnitude. At the same time, if you want somebody who's going to move the needle for you at all, or even to just get close to a starting level player, it's going to take a trade. And that just is what it is. I mean, when you're looking at the free agent options out there, I mean, it's hard to even figure out who's on a team or not at this point, this far into the season, only a couple weeks. But Preston Smith, who visited the Commanders on Tuesday, had 4.5 sacks last year between the Steelers and the Packers. But before that, had 8+ sacks between 2021 and 2023, had at least 8 sacks in all of those seasons. 32 years old. But if you're looking for a short-term Khalil Mack replacement and someone who has some pass rush productivity, he checks that box. Carl Lawson, another vet out there, 5 sacks in 15 games with Dallas last year. Hurt in 2023, but also had 7 sacks in 2022. And there's someone like DeMarcus Walker, 7 sacks the last 2 years with the Bears, played in 17 games, 3 straight seasons. So that's what you're looking at when you're looking at the free agent pool. Jadeveon Clowney obviously picked up pretty quickly into the season after, teams see kind of what their pass rush looks like. Chargers obviously just found out, they're going to be without Khalil Mack for however long that is, and we'll probably know at some point today or at some point tomorrow, and we'll be back to talk about that too. But yeah, I mean, the thing is right now you have your edge 2 and 3 are Bud Dupree and Caleb Murphy. Bud Dupree had 0 pressures and 29 snaps versus the Raiders in this last game. Now, he got the Colton Miller treatment, and Colton Miller is an elite left tackle for sure, so if you don't want to put too much stock into that. But Caleb Murphy, who is now edge 3, has 2 pressures over 2 games and 37 pass rushing snaps. It's just not good enough. Thule has 10 through 2 games. He's been good, but you need somebody with him, and you need that player to kind of slide Bud Dupree, slide Caleb Murphy into the roles that they were supposed to be in. Because without these guys, Jesse Minter's going to have to get even more creative, bring even more pressure, potentially open up even more kind of holes on this defense to try to, overcompensate for what they're missing with Khalil Mack, which hopefully, isn't, him missing 2 months. Hopefully it is a couple weeks or something like that, and he can play with a brace. We will find out. But it does bring up a great buy or sell that is going to be polarizing with people here, which is just this. Buy or sell, the Chargers should have kept Joey Bosa. He has been awesome through 2 weeks, David. Are Chargers fans missing Joey Bosa right about now? Should they have tried to hold on to him?
As we always know with these type of situations, hindsight is definitely 2020. I mean, you're put in this situation now with the uncertainty with Khalil Mack, and Joey Bosa is going out there balling out, playing very, very good football and helping the Buffalo Bills win football games. That's great. But I also am firmly of the belief that it was time for the Chargers and Joey Bosa to part ways. It just wasn't working. Joey Bosa was very much a player that was put together by surgeons. A lot of injuries, and this guy, honestly, just to me is made of glass. I mean, he's performed very, very well to start the season, but to me, I don't know how anybody out there could have any kind of confidence that he is going to be able to finish a 17-game season healthy. It's just not something we've seen in many, many years, and if we see it this year, I will be insanely surprised.
Yeah, the thing is like they were going to owe him $35 million plus this year in cap hit if they kept him. They saved $25 million by releasing him. Now the Chargers still, are up there as far as the cap space available, and maybe you could have made it work somehow. But with the way he played last year, which was playing most of the year but just not producing at the same level, he obviously was toughing it out through something last year, and this year he seems healthy. And let me be the first to say, I'm happy for him, even if he does whatever the kind of real world subtweeting of the Chargers is, because he's had some comments that have definitely been some shots at his former team, who did ask him to take a pay cut, right? And also, cut him last year because of what his cap hit was. Either way, it wasn't a super gracious exit for Joey Bosa, but man, has he been good this year. And of course, with Khalil Mack out, yeah, it'd be great to have Joey Bosa if you were just taking it, aside the actual logistics of it and what it would take for them to actually have kept him. Leads the NFL in pass rush grade so far through 2 weeks, of course. 8th in win percentage as far as pass rush win rate. 9 pressures and only 33 snaps. I mean, he has almost a 30% pressure rate at this point, where you have, Caleb Murphy and Bud Dupree, who have 5 combined pressures and 86 snaps. So it would be great to have him with what you're already paying him this year and what it would have. I mean, if you could have signed him to what the Bills signed him for, you would have done it, right? But the problem is you're already having to pay him $10+ million in dead cap and then having to sign him to whatever that new contract was. It just never was going to happen. Happy for Joey Bosa. Happy the Chargers don't have to play him. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but as you said, he's getting Bills fans' hopes up, but the Chargers have been in that exact place and have been let down many times. There's a reason he's not back with the team in 2025. But we still have more to get into because it's time to talk about Tony Jefferson, who balled out in the last game, and it's time to sign that man on a long-term basis to this active roster again, and all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep the game moving forward. This week, the players who moved the game forward were Derwin James and Deion Henley, with Khalil Mack getting injured early on. The Chargers on other defensive captains stepped up in a big way, with Deion Henley getting an interception and a sack of Geno Smith, and Derwin James all over the place and keeping Brock Bowers in check. This week, the Chargers have to keep the game moving forward and forget about the Monday Night Football because they are playing the Broncos this weekend with a chance to go 3-0 inside the AFC West. It'll be up to these defenders to go and show they can do it week in and week out. That's what keeps the fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering your team on. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping up at checkout. It's very frustrating. That's why I use GameTime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. GameTime is fast, easy, and backed by a GameTime guarantee. That means you will always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. I had to do a double take on this one because I was looking up the Chargers' first home game this weekend against the Broncos in a huge matchup, right, for the lead in the AFC West. And I had to do a double take because you can get into this game for $68. That's with all the fees included. That's with everything. That is insane value, and they have a ton of tickets under $100 for this game. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that promo code is LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download GameTime today. David, we still have more buy or sells to get into because there are a ton of overreactions and storylines to talk about right now with this team who, it's not about, being 2-0. It's about, hey, how can you continue this? How can you build upon what you've started because you've already given yourself an advantage, not just in the AFC West, but just on the season as far as, a team that many people questioned if they would make the playoffs or not. They couldn't have had a better start so far. And one of the guys who was a big part of that second victory was Tony Jefferson. And we were going to get to him either way, but we thank John Clark for giving us this buy or sell. Buy or sell, Unk did enough last night to prove that he should be on the active roster for the rest of the year and the postseason. David, you buying or selling that?
This is an easy buy. This is a one that I've bought from the entire offseason, from what I saw him, how he performed in the preseason, and then again, having to go through the roster gymnastics and trying to stay up mentally and be okay with all of the movement when he clearly proved that he should have been on this football team, on this 53-man roster from the beginning. He waits, he gets his opportunity here in this game, and he makes the most of it. Played 60 snaps, had a run defensive grade of 77.9, a coverage grade of 76.6, 5 tackles, 2 passes defensed, 1 in the end zone, and obviously that fantastic interception where he was in double coverage over there. Just unbelievable play. And also play with violence. I mean, I just love the way he plays the game, running through guys. When he's making tackles, he is making sure that the play is over. When he hits you, he wants that whistle to blow, and that's the type of mentality and the type of play that you have to play with, especially that's the standard here with the Chargers, and Tony Jefferson just proved his value. And to me, I don't think that you can take the chance after that performance to put him back on the practice squad, because there is going to be a team out there that says, wow, I can go sign this guy right now and add him to my team and make my team better immediately. I am going to go do that. So the Chargers are playing with fire the longer they wait to get Tony Jefferson signed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that he should have been signed. He should have made the opening 53-man roster. We've talked about it before. You talked about, a level of physicality that he brings, and we've seen pretty much every game that he's been up with the active roster since the beginning of last year. And yeah, I mean, the interception, it was great that he pointed out on a Stephen Haglund post on Tuesday that even on the interception, that play, even if Dante Thornton had caught it, he had actually pushed him out of bounds on the scramble drill by Geno Smith. So no matter what, it was not going to end up as a touchdown. And that's just kind of one little nugget that shows you exactly why his veteran leadership and, what he brings to the table is so important. And you're right. If I needed safety help, the first thing I'd be doing is trying to sign Tony Jefferson off of the Chargers practice squad. I don't care if you have to, waive Kendall Williamson, do whatever you have to do. Get him on the roster because as we see, he is a starting level safety still in this league. But let's get to this one from EBM on Instagram, who says, buy or sell. Tarheeb still is an all-pro or at least a second team. David, I know this is your guy. Is this the year he makes the jump into that conversation?
I think that he has done everything he's had to do in the offseason to put himself in position to be in contention. But we got to look at the other guys that won the All-Pro award last year, and there is some extremely stiff competition, obviously including the Defensive Player of the Year from last year, Patrick Surtain II, who is in your division, who we are going to see on Sunday when the Chargers play the Broncos at SoFi Stadium. And of course, the other guy who made life a living hell for Justin Herbert in the playoff game against the Houston Texans, and that's Derek Stingley Jr., a guy who, when healthy, I mean, it's unquestionable how talented that guy is. Also, Marlon Humphrey as well, and another guy you might be familiar with, Derwin James, who won that second team All-Pro as a slot cornerback for the Chargers. And for Tarheeb still, I think the ball skills are what's going to get him in that conversation. It absolutely is. He has those instincts, hasn't got his hands on a football yet, but I absolutely believe that is going to change. The aspect of his game that I feel like has gotten much better and gives me a lot of hope that he could get to that level is his ability to tackle and tackle in space. We saw a couple of great examples of that maturation in his game against the Raiders, making some fantastic open field tackles. If he's able to keep on that trajectory and then get back to that 4, 5, 6 interception area, I think he absolutely can find himself as an All-Pro. I don't know if it will be this year, but I am very confident that he has that in his future.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to crack that top three, Marlon Humphrey, Derek Stingley, and Pat Surtain II. But, maybe that top six is doable, but you'd have to, kick off one of your own teammates. And Derwin James, who is the second team all-slot cornerback.
Who's also playing season out of his mind.
And the crazy thing is Tarheeb still has been awesome, and it's backed up by his grades on Pro Football Focus. Sometimes it is accurate. 9th in coverage grade out of 141 eligible cornerbacks. The craziest part is that's not even the best on his own team because Dante Jackson somehow through 2 games, I don't want to let this one slip by, has a passer rating allowed of 8.3. That's not 80.3. That's not 18.3. 8.3 through 2 games. He has allowed 4 catches on 10 targets for 16 yards. That's a whopping 1.6 yards per target there. Dante Jackson deserves his flowers too. We were worried about the Chargers corners, and I thought Cam Hart even had some really good moments before having to leave the game with an injury in this last one. We'll see what happens with him this week. But, man, those guys are, especially with kind of how, I guess, the lack of willingness Jesse Minter had to kind of commit to these guys as starters, they've looked really awesome so far. But let's get to this one quickly from a while here who says, buy or sell, Chargers extend Jesse Minter before season's end. David, what do you think?
I mean, I absolutely would love to see this, but there's really no way that this is going to happen. I think everybody knows, especially with how the Chargers defense has turned around so quickly, that Jesse Minter is going to be a head coach in this league. And unfortunately, with these type of performances, it's going to be a lot sooner than later. I have always been of the mind that I would love to see a succession type clause in there that he takes over as head coach when Jim Harbaugh is done coaching football. But that's just not going to happen. That's not the reality of the business of the NFL. Everybody wants to be that head guy in charge. They want to be that head coach. Jesse Minter is going to be a head coach, and he's probably going to be a head coach next year.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, you can have the successor clause, and you can give him a new contract, but the problem is there's no contract that can block you from taking a head coaching position. So if you're going to give a big old signing bonus to someone who could be gone next year and a multi-year contract extension, when the writing's already on the wall, maybe not the best financially prudent decision, I would say.
Yeah.
This is what I would say, though. I'm making Jesse Minter the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league, and I'm making a little bit of gap between him and the next best guy. And I'm making the decision as hard as possible as I possibly can, right? But I think the thing is great defenses can be fleeting. You're talking about someone like Lou Anarumo, a guy who had all the hype around him, helped the Bengals get to the Super Bowl, and only a couple years later with some kind of lack of personnel, and he's fired, right? And now he's with the Colts. He's a great defensive coordinator. So when you get hot and you have the chance to do it, you can't always be that picky. Sometimes you have a Ben Johnson who sticks around. Maybe that's best case scenario. But he's going to have some offers if he keeps this up, and it's going to be really, really hard to retain him. But we do have more to get into on this buy or sell Wednesday as it is, including if it's time for Najee Harris to be the Chargers starting running back going into week 3. We're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to play, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, especially with the last couple of weekends, knowing the Chargers were not playing on Sunday and just getting to veg out on the rest of the teams. It's always a little bit more juice when you have something going on the game. And as we talked a little bit about yesterday, now when you go and you want to do a future on FanDuel and you look up the winners of the AFC West and the odds for that, you're going to see the Chargers as the leader in the clubhouse to make to win the AFC West. And a lot of that can change this weekend. A lot of that's going to have to do with if the Chargers can bring down the Broncos and send them to 1-2. I mean, can you imagine a 1-2 Broncos team and a 1-2 Chiefs team? Right now, the Broncos are 2.5-point favorites at home against the Broncos, but it's going to be a tough one on FanDuel. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. David, we still have more buy or sells to get into, and I just want to thank all the everydayers for contributing and letting us do shows like this where we get to hear what you guys want to talk about. If you need a second listen, make sure you guys check out the double dose of Locked On NFL that's out every day with Tyler the Madman Roland and my guy Tony Wiggins, who's taking you into the barbershop on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast from. David, we still have a couple more here we want to get to, including a tough one. Maybe a shot of tough love here potentially from Big Iman here, who says, longtime listener and fan, buy or sell, Najee Harris is the starter from here on out. David, hasn't been the start that I think many Chargers fans wanted to see from Omarion Hampton, but is it time to pull the trigger and let the vet start for the foreseeable future?
I think there is a time here where we have to consider Najee Harris to get more carries. I think the first couple of games, it was a part of, trying to give the rookie an opportunity that I feel like he earned by staying healthy and being available all offseason, while also giving Najee Harris some time to get his wits about him, to get his training and his physical fitness up and get back into football shape and feel comfortable and confident out there on the football field. And now you consider the struggles that Omarion's had. It's only 3.1 yards per carry through 2 games. And, he's had 23 carries, so he's got a decent amount of opportunities. And in the first game, Najee Harris only got 1 carry for 5 yards. And then in the second game here, I think he was a good part of helping the Chargers put that game away. He was running with physicality, moving forward, making it difficult for them to stop him. He very, very rarely goes backwards. He just always is able to find the way to move forward and keep those chains going. And you need that. He's a closer. He's that physical type runner. And also, with the putting the ball on the ground, right? That's something that is definitely going to lead to the ball going into someone else's hands. Fortunately for the Chargers, they have Najee Harris. I wouldn't say going forward as in permanently, but I would feel like there's a high likelihood that the next couple of games, you might see the carry load favor more so in the Najee Harris than in the Omarion Hampton side.
Yeah, and the thing is like just because one of them starting obviously doesn't mean it has to be an 80-20 carry split, right? Like Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton will still both be very involved. But I think that, Najee Harris is 3.5 yards per carry, even if it doesn't seem super impressive from that last game, is not indicative of how good he was. I mean, he was one of the top graded offensive players on the Chargers because of how much he was able to create with not much space there. And that has been the story for both of those guys. Not a lot of space to operate. Have they missed some holes? Yeah, Marion's missed a hole or two for sure. But like for the most part, these guys are getting hit in the backfield. And when you have, negative yards before contact, it's just going to be really hard for you to show what you can do. I'm not panicking about Omarion Hampton yet, but I do think that for this next game, it should be Najee Harris. It should be feed the hot hand. You're going to have, Omarion Hampton the next 5 years. There's no need to give him 300 carries this year anyways.
Absolutely.
But once he shows he's the better option and you're getting more out of him when he's on the field than with Najee Harris, it should be Najee Harris. And I would say I understand fans' frustrations because I think, wondering whether you should have taken a running back in the first round is fair. If you take a first round running back, that isn't any position. You're expecting that person to start for you right away, produce for you right away when you spend that premium of a pick on maybe a less premium position. You want that production ASAP, and I get it. It doesn't always happen that way. I still don't think Omarion has looked bad outside of a couple of rookie mistakes, but they're not really giving him much, and I think he's a guy right now it feels like needs kind of a runway before he can get going. And, we haven't seen him in open space. That's the hard part, man, because I think once he gets there, if he could break one and show that kind of explosiveness to break off a 20, 30-yard run, it'd be a little different. We just haven't seen that so far, but some good short yardage runs. I'm not panicking on him yet. Let's get to this one from Steven Sullivan, who says, buy or sell, Chargers will not have a top 25 run game unless they activate Tucker Fisk for game days. David, what do you think?
I love Tucker Fisk. I mean, he's a big, gigantic tight end who's a pretty good blocker, 285-pound guy. Like, he's pretty much an extra offensive lineman. But if you want to look at the highest graded run blocker on the team, it's a tight end, and it's Will Dissly at the 72.7 run block grade. And you look at the rest of the offensive line, they're all in the 50s with the exception of Joe Alt, who's just above that at a 60.7. So it's not all about the tight end blocking. Yes, it's a part of it, but I think it's a pretty small part of it. I think the offensive line as a whole needs to block better in general for them to have more success on the ground, with obviously the running backs playing a little bit better, but they need holes to run through. They can't keep getting hit in the backfield and expect, to get any kind of positive results. Yeah, they're going to break tackles from time to time, but it's kind of hard to be able to get positive yardage when you don't have places to run with the football. So I think the offensive line improving their game as good as they've been as pass protectors, and they absolutely have been very, very good in that aspect. The run blocking has left something to be desired.
Absolutely. I mean, that's true. And I think there's an argument for it, though. I mean, if your running game sucks, maybe you bring up your second best run blocking tight end, because guess what? Will Dissly's great. You can have them both on the field. Not only that, you've been doing that, right? Like, Scott Matlock has been whatever so far this year. I'd almost rather have Tucker Fisk out there than that. Tyler Conklin, not a great run blocker, a serviceable run blocker at best. Both those guys got their lunch taken by Max Crosby, including Will Dissly in that last game, because that's just an unfair matchup the Chargers shouldn't have had. But so far, the Chargers ranked 29th in yards per carry and 25th in rushing yards. And you might be, okay, 25th in rushing yards. They've been throwing the ball a lot. That is true, but they're still 16th in the NFL in attempts. So they're still average, right at league average as far as how many times they're running it per game. They're not running it at all by any means. So that unit has to get better. It's depressing that we're talking about year two in a Greg Roman offense, and the thing that isn't working is the running game still, and it's hard to have a lot of faith in that unit. It feels like they're just really desperately missing Rashawn Slater, because it just feels like that would have been kind of the key cog to bring it all together, because then you get Joe Alt and Mekhi Becton next to each other. You get Rashawn Slater and Zion Johnson next to each other. Bradley Bozeman is serviceable in that regard, and I just think it would have been a lot better than it is right now. But unfortunately, this is what they have to work with. Hey, Tucker Fisk, if they want to use it to try to give him a boost, I'd be all for it, because right now Justin Herbert's the second leading rusher on this team, and Omarion Hampton only has him by 9 yards, which is not a good thing. And the only reason they're even not like bottom of the league in rushing yards and yards per carry. Let's get to one more here before we go, and it's a simple one. Buy or sell we need to apologize to Trey Pipkins. What do you think, David?
I got to buy it because obviously we all had a lot of trepidation going into this game against Max Crosby, who traditionally rushes against the right tackle for the most part. And after giving up 4 pressures in the first game, Trey Pipkins pitched a shutout against Max Crosby, did not allow a single pressure in that game. Excuse me, sir. I apologize. I was not familiar with your game. I am now, and I hope we get to see him replicate that, hopefully 16 or 17 more times.
Yeah, man, and the crazy thing is, like, I didn't think he was god-awful. Like, he didn't derail things offensively even in the first game. And, like, pressures obviously are a big thing, but, like, the last pressure he technically allowed to Chris Jones on the inside is what opened up the outside rushing lane for Justin Herbert to go pick up a 3rd and 15 in the biggest moment of the game. So, like, pressures aren't weighted equally all the time.
Yeah, they're
but
not,
in 2023,
they're not all created equal, yeah.
No, in 2023, he had 2 games at right tackle with 0 pressures allowed. Those games didn't come against Max Crosby. Max Crosby in this game only had 1 pressure. There wasn't a single game in 2024 that he had less than 2 pressures. Like, he had multiple pressures in every game he played in last year. The last time he had 1 or less was week 12 in 2023. That's how impressive of a job. Yeah, I mean, Max Crosby absolutely destroyed the Chargers running game almost single-handedly last week, but they did keep him handled in the pass protection, which is insane. I mean, it was crazy that they were able, especially against one of the best edge rushers they are going to play all season, they were able to hold him to 1 pressure. That bodes well for a Chargers pass blocking unit that has been incredibly outplayed what our expectations were from that room, just by leaps and bounds. We had very low expectations. They passed in pretty much every metric we could ask for. And the main thing we asked for is don't let the pass rush for the other team be the main story in the game. Now, they're going to have a really, really tough matchup again this week against the Broncos, who, even after last week's performance, I still think probably have one of the best defenses in the league. But we're going to get into that tomorrow because just like that, it's already crossover Thursday. So make sure you're here tomorrow for Locked On Chargers, Locked On Broncos, getting into what will decide this big-time matchup in the AFC West. And to do that, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media, at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. You can also call into the voicemail line if you want at 323-524-7924 and leave a 30-second Chargers question or buy or sell there. The Chargers have impressed a lot. Is it too much to ask for 3-0? Because I think if they can win again this weekend, they're going to really, really have the momentum to start actually thinking about taking this AFC West crown. They'll have the best possible start that they could have. And I think we'll really prove something if Justin Herbert can do it again against this defense. So make sure you guys are here tomorrow to talk about it with the Locked On Broncos podcast on Crossover Thursday. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.